have already talked about it. Usually the mindset is to somehow get the clearance and license for your business, but not doing the thing honestly. So that causes the problem. But it should not happen in that way. So if you are really damaging the things around, then you should take some action for that also. This greenhouse gases, you must be knowing, like carbon dioxide and methane, and what is the effect they are causing to this ozone layer depletion and climate change, etc. So all these things are very, I mean, everybody knows about all these things. But thing is that here I will emphasize that if the project is dealing with these kind of things, then there should be a very conscious and serious effort in the planning stage itself regarding its appraisal. So when I'm talking about appraisal, you will see what are the kind of effects or the kind of pollutions you are going to cause. Now, how to mitigate that? What are your action plans? So that is the thing. Clean water protection, industrial wastewater treatment plants. So you may be knowing various industries have their own wastewater treatment plants. So before disposing them to some nearby water bodies like river or ponds, they like to treat that water so that at least it can be disposed safely. So see again, that there is always a kind of a trade-off, right? The trade-off between your profit or your investment and the returns, right? So when you are treating these waters, wastewater, right, it needs investment, it needs facility, right? You have to develop those treatment plants, right, and you have to man it. Also, what in the return you are getting? Maybe by your balance sheet you are getting nothing, right? But it is a society, it's the society or the public at large are facing it otherwise. So this is a thing, this is a conflict, this is a trade-off that you have to balance between, right? You always cannot just look into the profit or kind of investment of your project at the cost of public health. So industrial wastewater treatment plants, protection of biodiversity means wherever this project you are thinking or carrying out. So how it is affecting the biodiversity of that place? Maybe that place was a greenfield before your plant, before your project, it was a complete greenfield project. Now you have to develop that plant. I mean land, right? So when I'm talking about developing the land, you have to cut many trees, you have to fill many water bodies with you have to develop the land, right? So when you are developing that land, you are going to affect various species which are living there, right? They have a well established cycle. You may be knowing all these things. So you are going to disturb that cycle because of this project, right? You may not also see it. There are very small species and creatures, and they are just they are having a kind of a healthy cycle in which they are living, right? In the what you call as flora and fauna. So these are all connected, right? So when you are damaging a particular area for your project, right, you can ignore it. You can ignore it. That's why I'm saying it needs a very honest approach, right? You can ignore it just after getting the license. But the thing is that you have damaged the biodiversity. And there are countries which give more emphasis on this compared to us. It is a fact. That is what happens in the long run. Maybe in the short run, you will think yourself clever that I am not investing, still I am getting profit. But in the long run, you will understand. You will analyze, you will understand what is the kind of damage that project has made to that particular area, or maybe it is spread across to other areas. So protection of biodiversity is also very important for such kind of projects, where you are developing a green field some projects, right? So that needs some conscious effort. Development of, these are all action plans I'm talking. So development of infrastructure in protected areas for species protection and habitat is similar to that biodiversity, particularly for mining projects, right? So again, here there is a conflict, right? We have natural resources beneath the earth, right? And we need to get it because it is required for our development. You just cannot leave it as it is. We need it for our development. That is the need of the hour, let us say. So you have some precious ores, right? You have to use it for your national growth. But at the same time, how to preserve the biodiversity there, right? How to minimize the wastage and the use of that resource. You should not just start exploiting that natural resource so that maybe in your own generation you will adjust all this. Similarly, if that area, that mining project happens to come under some kind of protected area, usually it happens because in the forest only you can find these mines. So it may be a protected area for some species like tiger, or elephant, or some other species. Then how to manage this? Again, is a conflict, or maybe some habitat. From a very old time, some people are living there. The ancient, from ancient times, right? The tribals. There are many such issues. I gave the example of you about to the Vedanta facing many such problems in mining areas because of these tribal peoples. I remember a place called Niyamgiri in Odisha. So it's a big bauxite plant, the richest bauxite plant. But there's a long issue that the people living nearby, they used to worship that mountain, Niyamgiri, as their god, as it used to happen in their culture. And this Niyamgiri forest or that mountain was the richest source of bauxite, and Vedanta was eyeing it. So somehow it was cancelled, it could not get back, right? So these conflicts happen because of these things. Right? So again, particularly for projects which deals with these kind of things, maybe a huge patch of cultivation land, right? It's a very good land for cultivation of rice or wheat, but you want to develop a project there, some new automobile company, industry, farm, plant, right? So you have to face it, how to deal with that. It is a cultivation land. There are many people whose habitats are depending on that. They're having a living out of that. How you'll replace them, right? How you'll replace them? It is not just a simple employment you can give them and you can make them happy. No, the reason is that they see that land can feed them for generations, but your job for one generation may not ensure that. What is the guarantee that his son will also get the job in that company? Isn't it? So people hesitate to part with their lands in such cases. So acquiring land in such examples are really tricky. So projects which are related with this kind of features face a lot of hurdles because of these things, right? Again, if the project is causing some pollution, be it air, water, or land, then what kind of actions you should think beforehand? Okay, so waste matter or surplus energy. Even there is a thing called a surplus energy. Surplus energy is a kind of pollution. Means suppose you are exhausting a lot of heat into the atmosphere, right? Simple heat. It's not pollution, but a huge amount of heat is exhausted from your plant. Let us say your nature of plant is such that you have to exhaust, or you have to use the atmosphere as a sink. So you have to exhaust a lot of heat to the atmosphere. Right. So imagine what will happen to the people living nearby. right? There will be increase in temperature of that area. The air will get heated, right? So it may not look like a pollution, but yes, it is a hazard. Similarly, noise. Suppose your project or your plant is creating a lot of noise continuously, huge decibel level. What will happen to the people living nearby? They will leave the place, right? So again, depending on the type of project and the kind of negative effects, or which we call as costs in the language of management, what it costs to the society, that you have to look into. And in most of the cases, you'll find that some companies are becoming more concerning about these things. The reason is that they know that they are costing a lot, right? Particularly these mining companies, right? They know that they are costing a lot to the people living nearby, right? So they will try to be more concerning. They will open a lot of hospitals, a lot of educational schools and medicals, etc. The reason is that to compensate. The more the harm you are causing, you will project yourself as more caring, isn't it? That way these companies work. You'll hardly find any these public helps from IT companies. Rarely. The reason is that they know they are not, damaging or harming any kind of public health or issues. So they hardly matters. Of course, they may have CSR to some extent, just to give some training intensive, etc. But they are not going to open hospitals, infrastructures, educational schools, education, no. But industries which are causing pollutions, right? Using natural resources, rehabilitating people from their livelihood and they are replacing them, they will be projecting themselves as more caring, just to compensate. Same thing is so applied here. So, all right. So damage to human health by specific chemical substances present in their air, food, water, and radioactive materials. So these are sort of pollutions that can happen from projects and how it is going to affect the human health. So, there are some areas in which people used to get some peculiar health issues, right? Peculiar health issues because of the plant which is nearby, right? Because they pollute the water bodies nearby. So the poor people used to drink that water and they will have that disease. There are many examples, right? So by some chemical substances which are present in the air, food, but even their vegetation, the plants they grow there, that also carry that toxic substances. And the radioactive material is the most dangerous thing you can understand. If the project is dealing with some radioactive materials, then you can imagine what is kind of care you have to take for the people living nearby. Damage to natural environment affecting vegetation, animals, crops, soil and water. Damage to visual quality by smoke, fumes, dust, noise and waste. So these are various forms of pollutions that can cause or affect the life of people. So, I used to give the example of Delhi in the winter season. You're not able to see maybe up more than a distance of 5 meters or so because of something called smoke. The fog plus smoke is havoc in that place during that time. And in the other normal times also, because of industrial pollutions, you'll have some health issues. You'll have a coughing problem. You'll have itching of eyes. So things like that happens. So these are all damages that one faces because of these smokes, fumes, dust, noise, and waste. Damage by radioactive material and excessive noise. Okay, so these are the things we covered that are the action plans. The action plans that can a project policymaker or project manager can think of beforehand, so that it can be at least reduced, right? Then I'll start a new topic, which is feasibility study, as per your syllabus, of course. Feasibility study is something which is very similar to the project appraisal, but on a lighter note, right? You are not looking into very detail of that. You are just checking that whether this project is feasible or not. That's why it's called feasibility study. Similar to project appraisal. Just a second. Okay, similar to project appraisal, project feasibility study can also be of different categories like technical feasibility, managerial feasibility, and similarly commercial, economical, etc. So you can see the first paragraph for the definition of feasibility study. Feasibility study. Am I audible to you? Okay. So a feasibility study is an analysis of the viability of an idea through a disciplined and documented process of thinking through the idea from its logical beginning to its logical end. Okay. A feasibility study provides an investigating function that helps answer, should we proceed with the proposed project idea? Is it a viable business venture? Okay, so this is a very basic question. And you are just giving it a thought, serious thought, right? If the idea is not at all viable or feasible, then you will not think more on this, right? So suppose in your BTech project, some of your group might said, let us prepare a missile for so and so purpose. So you'll just laugh and you'll drop the idea because it's not viable to produce, manufacture and design a missile within 2-3 months, and funding and there is human problems are there. So it's not feasible. Similarly, in any company, suppose the project idea is beyond their capacity or beyond their requirements or feasibility, then they will drop the idea. So that's why it is called the feasibility study, because you are just checking whether it is viable or feasible or not. So is it a viable business venture? So you will just, if it is a commercial project, then you will just check that. So a feasibility study should be conducted to determine the viability of the idea before proceeding with the development of a business. The feasibility study is an evaluation and analysis of the potential of a proposed project, which is based on extensive investigation and research to support the process of decision making. Feasibility studies aim to objectively and rationally uncover the strengths and weaknesses of an existing business or proposed venture, opportunities and threats present in the environment, the resources required to carry through, and ultimately the prospects for success. Okay, so in the feasibility study, you are checking whether this project idea is a good idea for us. We have all the capability to do this. If we will invest in this project, we will get benefited. Then you will proceed. Feasibility studies may also open new possibilities, opportunities, and solutions one might never have. This last point is also interesting. When you are carrying out this feasibility study, there are some chance that you may come up with another better idea, right? It practically happens. You may have experience of this also. Suppose you are thinking about some assignment or some project, right? So when you are discussing on that, maybe from that at a very early stage, maybe at that stage, you will come up with another bright idea, fantastic idea, which you have not thought earlier. This also happen because you have brainstormed, you have thought on that. So there is a possibility that you will get better opportunity or solutions, right, compared to the First one, so that is another feature. A feasibility study is designed to provide an overview of the primary issues related to a business idea. Of course, these things are mentioned in the context of any project which is by any business entity, right? The purpose is to identify any issues that would prevent project from being successful. So again, in the feasibility study also, you will look into what are the main hurdles, main roadblocks that can make this project unsuccessful, right? That will definitely look into. In any project, when you are thinking, you will see that in what case this project will not be successful, what will make it fail. So that also you will check here. So if you are finding there are many reasons that this project will fail, will be a failure, then maybe you will drop the idea. In other words, a feasibility study determines whether the project idea makes sense. A thorough feasibility analysis provides a lot of information necessary for the project plan. Feasibility studies are focused and specific. They start, I'm just reading because these things has nothing more to explain. They start with a single question, asking whether the idea, event, or action is a viable solution, and focus solely on that question to the exclusion of everything else, drilling down to explore possible outcomes. A feasibility study is not the okay. This thing you should know. We already know what is project appraisal. A feasibility study is not the same as appraisal, right? It is different. A feasibility study is an investigative tool that might cause one to abandon an idea, whereas a project appraisal is assess the success potential and frame action plans based on that. So this red font you can go through, and that exactly says what is the difference between uh, feasibility study and project appraisal. Although by nature both are same, but the difference is their rigorosity, their seriousness, and the stage in which they are applied, right? That is the difference. So in fact, use a feasibility study as a predecessor. Okay, so last line says all about this. A feasibility study as a predecessor to project appraisal. So which comes first? Okay, you will not answer. Feasibility study comes first, right? Because it is a predecessor to project appraisal. So as I said, feasibility study may be happening in the very initial stage of the project life cycle, right? Whenever there is some idea, now the project is in an idea form, just an idea form. Nothing, no detail is there, just an idea form. For example, let us say there is a company and they want to expand their manufacturing plant in another city. Let us say this is the project. This is a project. So maybe, as I said, in some formal or informal meeting, somebody has got this idea of their board members, and he floated it. Right? Why not open? We are facing some demand issues, so why not start our manufacturing at city X or place X? We can expand our plant there, right? So just an idea, right? Now, if it is liked by others, then they will think on this. They will deliberate on that, or which you call as technically brainstorm on that, right? We have to start a new plant in city or town X, right? Then it has to pass through the feasibility study. That is the very early stage. So in the feasibility study, you are just checking whether this idea has to be continued or it must be abandoned. So depending on the kind of situation, right, you may carry on or you may abandon that idea. But project appraisal happens after that. You have accepted the idea and you are proceeding. Then you are making assessments. So project appraisal is a kind of assessments where as I said, you may need to have some external help, maybe some market survey, maybe some data analytics, maybe some financial people will be involved. You will talk about from where to raise the fund. And now things are more serious and deeper compared to project feasibility analysis, right? Okay, so there is a complicated flow chart here, but the thing is not that complicated. Generation of ideas, initial screening. Is the idea prima facie promising? What is prima facie? Anyone? Yes? Who knows what is prima facie? Why you all people are silent? Should I pick a name? Okay, you are enjoying online classes. Very good. Okay, I'll let you enjoy. So is the idea prima facie promising? If it is no, then terminate it. Prima facie means in the first look, right? In the first look. So if the idea in the first look is looking promising, then you can proceed. Otherwise, you terminate it. As I gave you some weird examples of projects, so you will drop it. You will laugh it on it, and you will drop it, terminate. But if it looks promising, then you will go for feasibility analysis, plan feasibility analysis. So in the feasibility analysis, as I said, there are various types of feasibility categories similar to project appraisals. You can go for technical analysis, you can go for market analysis, you can go for financial, economic, ecological. So similar to project appraisal, you have to look into various aspects like ये project का आपका फंडिंग कहाँ से हो पाएगा और आपके मार्केट पोटेंशियल है कि नहीं है, देयर इज कस्टमर्स will like this product or not. Technical feasibility. Technical means in terms of the kind of engineering solution or maybe kind of processing technology you will make use, whether it is with you or you do not have the process technology, you have to take the help from other IPRs or patents. So all these things are technical. What is the material, raw material you will use, what will be its source, what will be the capacity of the plant you are thinking. So all these analyses are coming under technical. So finally, if is the project worthwhile? So after the feasibility analysis, if you found, okay, you can see something ecological analysis also there. So in each and every assessment, now this environment and ecology is also being a very important part. And it is from the last 10-15 years, I must remind you. Okay, is the project worthwhile? So finally, if you found that through this feasibility analysis, you are finding this project is passing through all these stages and it is found to be okay, then you will prepare funding proposals. Means you will prepare the DPR, which is called DPR, that is a detailed project report you will produce, so that more details you can mention there. Otherwise, if it's not worthwhile, then terminate. Drop the idea. Don't put more effort into that. So that is feasibility. So these are the various categories, as I already told you. Feasibility study in project management, assess the areas like technical capability, budget, legality, risk, operational feasibility, and timeline, these things. So technical capability, does the organization have the technical resources to undertake the project? This is coming under technical feasibility analysis. Like, do you have the engineering or technical know-how to do this, or you do not know how to make it? For example, suppose there is a small electronics component manufacturer, and they found that recently government is giving a lot of subsidies to these semiconductor manufacturing or the chip manufacturing, right? So whether they have the technical capability to jump into that kind of project, or they will just be in large. The thing is that if you do not have the technical capability, you just cannot take up a project. It will be a problem, right? You have to rely on some third party, right? Again, very similar example I found recently. This Vedanta is, I think, tying up with Foxconn to produce microchips. You must be knowing, because government of India is giving a lot of incentives and PILs for the companies which are going to manufacture these chips, because there is a lot of shortage for all these electronic devices and automobiles in the recent times. So India want to become self-reliant on this field, right? So because of that, there is a lot of electronics manufacturing is going to come up in recent future, including the microchips. But technical know-how is the biggest hurdle, right? Of course, the equipment is very expensive, but at the same time, the expertise and the technical know-how, we need to get that technology or kind of technical know-how from these companies like Foxconn, etc. Foxconn also is not a very expert in that, but still they can manage. That's why this Vedanta is tying up with that, and maybe they are thinking of manufacturing. Tata is also planning to have that chip manufacturing in India. So technical capability talks about that, right? Without technical capability, it will be very difficult to proceed with a completely new field of project. Budget, of course. So do you have the financial stand or capacity to carry on this kind of projects? Right? Have the financial resources to undertake the project? And is the cost benefit analysis sufficient to warrant moving forward? Right? Cost benefit, as I told you, what is the cost and what is the benefit? So usually if your benefit is more, then you will proceed. Otherwise, it will be costly. Legality, of course, is there any legal requirements of the project, or it will stock up in some legal battle, be it land acquisition or any environmental law or any kind of patent issue. So legal issues are also important. Risk, what is the risk associated with undertaking this project? Is the risk worthwhile to the company based on perceived benefits? Right? Operational feasibility, does the project in its proposed scope meet the organization's needs by solving problems and are taking advantage of the identified opportunities? So that is operational feasibility. And finally, can the project be completed in a reasonable timeline? So that is, so in the feasibility study, you are looking into all these aspects, but not in detail, not in depth, right? Just a overview of all these things, but you will get an idea that yes, it can be managed. Then you will proceed. Even in the appraisal stage also, projects can be abandoned. It depends what kind of results you are getting during your assessment. Not necessary that if you will proceed through feasibility, then you cannot drop it. It's not like that. You are free to drop it before the actual implementation. Because once the implementation is started, then after that, if you are dropping the project, then it is a very costly affair. Okay, so with this, I think I will stop here today.